Man, we live like Action News 5 over here at Next Up Barbershop, 726 North Parkway. Man, I got a good brother here that's living a good life that come from a justice impacted background. So we're going to walk you through the steps of this brother change the trajectory of his life so that you young brothers can get some motivation, some inspiration on how you can change the narrative and you can live a positive and productive life as well. So I want to introduce the some and present the others, none other than Mr. Anthony Williams. Man, welcome to the show, bro.
Nice
How's it going today?
Man, everything cool, man. Real beautiful day outside, man. So I'm loving it. I appreciate you for coming through and having me on the platform. Thank you for that.
Man, it's my pleasure, man. So look, check this out. Man, we wanna run it a little bit, chop it up a little bit, and we just want to talk about some of the things that you've been through in your life, man. Let's talk about some of the obstacles, some of the barriers, some of the struggles that you had to overcome in order to become who you've become. Because looking around, your establishment, man, look like you got a lot of great things going on. Right. And as a black man, that's what we're here for. We just want to shine the spotlight on what you're doing so that, man, we can sow hope into the lives of the next generation. So take me back, on how you ended up in Memphis, because I'm aware that you're not originally from here. Right. So kind of bring me back up to speed from how you got here and some of the things you went through before you got here, before you changed the narrative and the trajectory of your life.
Okay. Like you stated, I'm not from here. My name is Anthony Williams. I go by Lucky Lefty as well. To take you back to my earlier days or childhood days, growing up in Kansas City, like you said, I grew up there. I guess I wasn't really inspired to be in anything legitimate because that really wasn't my environment. Everybody that I saw that was successful, most of those people became successful from a criminal element of life that I chose to go into myself a little later on down the line. I guess early on, my family was deeply enrooted into the street life. Everybody was in gangs and drug life and things of that nature. And so that was pretty much my outlook. I had inspiration from my mother, who was asking me, begging and pleading with me not to become a person of just another number or a criminal like the rest of my family had became. But with the outlook in society, in my community where I grew up in my neighborhood, the people that were successful, most of those people looked like hustlers, whether they were stealing, whether they was dealing drugs, or whether they were robbing, or just whatever they could do to make ends meet. And eventually I saw myself headed down the same route. Education was always a main priority in my household, but with the struggle, the education really wasn't clicking in to me. I really didn't see where education could save me from some of those barriers that everybody else was going through. My grandmother, hard worker, grandparents were hard workers. My mother was a hard worker. Like I said, education was first. My grandparents worked at a college, so there definitely was the outlook in the direction that they would have expected me to go into. My father, I had a stepfather, but my biological father was a military veteran. He became a military veteran at the time. He wasn't a veteran. He was just going through the process of getting into the military to escape the same tragedies that I was going through, or that I would later on have to go through. So he was a very young man when he went into the military, 19 years old. He had pretty much a difficult past, just like any other young African-American growing up in the urban communities. The father figure that was at home was actually the father of my brothers and sisters. He wasn't my father, but he was actually the person who kind of showed me what life was all about, kind of gave me pointers on things that were possible and things that could happen. But he also was an example of what I would become later on. He was a hustler. He was a kilo kingpin. He ended up serving 15 years in prison. So the beginning of that, the origin of that, is that he was also affected by drugs. He was a drug user in the beginning. My mom kind of stepped in and helped him out a little bit to clean himself up. My brothers and sisters, it's kind of embarrassing, but they were crack babies. Let's say they were crack babies. But today they're college graduates. Both of them are college graduates, and we moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say that exposure was one of the things that played a vital role in impacting the trajectory of your life? Would you say that based upon the environment that you were in, you became victim and succumbed to what it is that you were seeing on a day-to-day basis, and you got curious? And I heard you say education was one of the things that was at the forefront, but listening to you talk, instant gratification became one of the things that you fell in love with, because you were seeing the drug dealers, the hustlers. You were seeing the nice things that they were having. You were seeing the nice cars that they were driving.
And I was seeing the struggle that the people that went to college was in. So that's what changed my whole mentality on whether I wanted to go to college or not. And then also with the military, I was looking at the fact that I was basically abandoned by my father because he couldn't be there because he was in the military and he was doing what he had to do to support me. And I understood that facet of it too. But also that negligence or just that abandonment, it kind of pushed me out there to the street life. Because I didn't have a father figure, especially once my father figure went to prison. Then I had to pretty much become the man of the house and do what I had to do for my brothers and sisters as well as myself. To give a little credit to Memphis, when I moved to Memphis, I saw inspiration. When I moved to Memphis, I saw black men that were powerful. Black men, because growing up in Kansas City, it basically was we multitask as far as diversity when it comes to cultures and different ethnicities. But for the main part, the successful people were the Caucasians. So seeing the people in my neighborhood that looked like me, seeing the people in my neck of the woods that looked like me, that were wearing the nice clothes and wearing the nice jewelry and had the women and had respect from the community, they were the people in the streets, the hustlers. And even so, gangsters, people that you would fear. You know, fear brings success too when you're living in their life, and that's something that the young men out here have to be aware of, that you can become successful from fear, but you don't want to be successful from fear because that's not real respect, it's not real success, it's not real love. It's just the demographics of fear. But to get back to Memphis, where I saw entrepreneurs that looked like myself, they didn't seem as if they came from the culture that I came from. I can give a credit to a guy, Torres Brooks. He was one of my mentors. He was one of the instructors at the barber college that he owned, that I eventually entered into once I moved to Memphis in 2006. And seeing that foundation, seeing that blueprint, I saw that the puzzle was not just an open game to play. You also have to really move pieces and put those pieces together to make that puzzle complete. And I saw that brother putting those pieces to that puzzle together and making it complete. And it was all legitimate. So that's kind of what changed my mind about wanting to be a successful drug dealer. That's what changed my mind about, he used to see me. And when we was in the streets, we wore certain things to represent our tribe, represent where we came from. And so he used to see me with those things on, those hats, those clothes, those bandanas. And he would say, I hope that hat that you're wearing, it represents being wealthy, or it represents a gentleman. And then and early on, if you would have asked me about that hat and you was in the streets, then I would ask you, what business of yours is it, what this hat represent? But he was somewhat of a structured person, and he was superior to my likeness because of what I was trying to do now, trying to change my life. And so I had to change the vocabulary. I had to change the certain things that I was saying, my actions and my attitude, my mentality about life, because I didn't know up until then that it was time to change because people were outside looking in.
Right. Yeah. So, man, that's a great story. Like, and I know that any young man on the outside looking in, right, they would probably wonder, like, hey, man, this brother went to barber school. This brother, changed the trajectory of his life. He an ex-hustler. He's had some encounters with law enforcement. He's had some gang affiliation. But You know, at what point did the light come on and you decide that, hey, I can live the same way that I was living in the streets. I could have these same nice things in corporate America. At what point did you start to push the needle forward with the newfound skill set that you got from graduating from barber school and start to run that bag up and realize that, hey, man, I ain't got to throw bricks at the penitentiary no more. I can eat the same way, you know what I'm saying, and doing shaves and fades. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, what was it that, you know, that you learned during the course of engaging with Brother Taurus Brooks at the barber school? When did the light click on and you figured it out?
Okay, the transition to becoming a barber from being a street hustler for me, to take you back a little bit, at 18, I caught a charge, intent to deliver. And I had a probation period, and I was always trying to find my way out of the street life, the hustling aspect of things. But because, again, I was suffering a lot of trauma dealing with family members going in and out of prison and losing their lives to the same struggle. So I was always trying to find another way out, as my mother was trying to tell me and teach me growing up. So I wasn't always just on the streets dealing drugs. And even when I had visions and I had, you know, images and ideals of moving forward and doing something legitimate, but looking at those same four walls and living in those same four corners. Because, again, once you start the gang banging, it's only so far you can go, because you have targets on your back. You know, you become opposition to somebody because you've hurt somebody and somebody want revenge from you. So it's only so far that you can go. You can't go to the east side if you're from the west side. Right. If you're from South Memphis, you did something to somebody in North Memphis, you can't go back to North Memphis. You know, you have to stay within your grounds. And so that was holding me back. And I really realized that, but I couldn't transition because I hadn't went far enough. So after I went so far as I had a attempted murder charge. And with the attempted murder charge, it led me to Memphis. When I left home after that happened, and I just told myself that I wasn't going back. I had a mother that was very instrumental in my life. She always supported everything that I was trying to do, as long as it was something positive. But like I said, with the college thing, I seen so many family members struggling through college. You know, I would have times where I would have functions going on at school and I couldn't get there because we didn't have a vehicle. So I thought that, what good is college if my mother still don't have a vehicle? We still living in the projects, the lights off, things are going on like that. So it kept me with the mentality of being in the streets. And so when I would try to do something positive, like going to school, getting a GED because I dropped out of high school, my pager would go off and it would be money calling, and I would walk out of the classroom and I wouldn't look back. Right. And I did that for probably about 7 years. And then I just realized that I wasn't going to get it done. And then I had got so far fledged into the gangbanging that I had so many enemies, I really couldn't walk away from, you know, my safety zone. I had to stay in my safety net. And eventually I ended up moving to Memphis because I saw that the walls was closing in on me and there was no further I could go. To talk about the same thing with the mother, she was my barber in the beginning. So it was a struggle at first because I was cutting my own hair. Right. So I started to kind of like it. And then the things that I was doing, I was kind of next level. I was using a razor back then. You know, I was cutting my own hair with razors and things like this. So it just became something that I started to like after so long. And even though I was doing something that was detrimental, like being in the streets, I still kind of wanted out. So I started to like cutting hair. I wasn't cutting hair when I was in Kansas City. Maybe a few times I had, you know, sharpened little skills on my son, or I practiced a little bit on my brothers and stuff. A few guys in the neighborhood and stuff like that. I had a little rank, so they'll let me mess their hair up. Right. You know, they wouldn't get too mad about it. Right. But it was cool. So, you know, that, and then I always like to keep myself up as far as being groomed, you know, because I was always taught that the first impression is the best impression. You know, as a man, you know, you want to groom, make sure that you're well groomed, because you never know who you might meet. So coming to Memphis, I think I got inspired because my people didn't give up on me. They wanted something out of me. They knew I had something in me. I knew I had something in me. I just couldn't put it out at the time because I didn't know anybody, and I really didn't know anything different. So moving here, I discovered that I wanted to cut hair. I didn't know what I really wanted to do, but I did know that I wanted financial stability. I wanted financial freedom. I didn't want to risk getting fired from a job because of my background, because of felonies and things like that. Because even though the system say that they give you a second chance, that's always on your background, and people always overlook that because the trust issues, you know.
Right.
And I can understand that now that I'm a business owner.
Right.
You know, I understand how people can say that they change, but they have to actually be the change. They have to walk in the light of the change in order for people to know that they've changed, because you do have a reputation in the background. The beautiful thing was I didn't have a reputation here in Memphis. I didn't have a bad background here in Memphis. So when people say I want to leave where I'm from, if you take the same attitude with you, then the same outcome will be. It won't change. It'll be the same that you lived before you even left where you came from.
Right.
So once I got into it, I started to like the environment. You know, I started to listen to my coworkers. I started to pay attention to everything in my surroundings, and I stopped being a tax burden, you know, and I started wanting to pay taxes. And that's what helped me change this whole thing around, because now I'm legitimate and I'm living better than I was living when I was in the streets. You know, when you're in the streets, you know, you can have $1 million today and it could be gone today. You know, it all can end. And so I got tired of that fallback, that fall off. You know, you get a few dollars and then next thing you know, you back down to zero when you out there in those streets. So once I did transition into the legitimacy and go into the barber industry, I started to see consistency. You know, I started to see black men that were at least honest enough to make appointments with me and stand on their words about their appointments. So they were consistent. You know, they did what they said they were going to do, and the teamwork made the dream work. It all started from there, and I just continued to build. You know, once the guy that was over the shop that I was working at, once he stepped down, you know, I stepped up, and he gave me the opportunity to step up. And so I didn't do it all alone. I had help. I had support. You know, once you decide to do something positive, you'll get just as much help, just as much support from positive people that's trying to do the same thing as you got from the negative people when you were doing something negative. For sure. And so I can't make no excuses, and then I can't take all the credit. So the credit is definitely due to the city of Memphis for being there and supporting me with what I thought I wanted to do, which what I am today.
But it's crazy that you say that, because there's been a false narrative that's been thrust into the air, into the atmosphere about Memphis, right? Mm-hmm. And it's crazy that to hear what you just said coming from someone that's not from here.
That's right.
It just proves that a lot of times the media controlling the narrative.
Of course. Sometimes
they put a narrative out there that's their narrative from the outside looking in, not from the inside looking out.
That's right.
So now looking at, you know, how Memphis has been a foundation for you to build upon that platform that you created through barbering school.
Yes.
Now just taking a look at you and looking around this nice shop that you have, hey, looking at you being well groomed, you know, you got on nice pieces, you know, hey, you know, you living the life. You know, exactly. Yeah. You living the life
here in Memphis.
Yeah, you living the life legitimately as a Memphian now. And man, you took the game all the way to the next level. And I just want to commend you, bro, for making a change, for changing your trajectory, man. And the thing is, I just want you to understand one thing. You know, the world is watching. A lot of these young brothers is watching, right? And I just want you to know that your inspiration, man, your motivation, you're going to be the person that's going to be able to sow the seed of hope into a young brother that's looking for a way out, right? And when he look at you and come and see, you know what I'm saying, the success, see the things that you've built, and you can take him, you know what I'm saying, through the steps of how you built this, how you turned a setback into a major comeback. And now you've pivoted from surviving to thriving. You ain't in survival mode no more. You're thriving now as a business owner. And you said one thing, right? Because you're continuing the legitimacy, because the one thing you talked about was paying taxes. See, and having a legitimate business, if you don't cut Uncle Sam out, he ain't gonna make you cut it out. So see, that lets me know that your mindset has shifted as well. So you on a higher scale of thinking now. And that's what we want, to instill into the next generation. We want these young brothers to understand, hey, when you get around positive people, you start doing positive things, and eventually you'll start thinking positive. And once they get embedded in your heart, it'll manifest itself in your action, attitudes, and behavior. And once you start doing good and you start thinking good, then everything around you going to become good.
Now, let me go back to that when you say that. So upon moving here and then becoming so successful, some of my old ways started to come back. Some of my old friends started to come back. When I moved away, everyone was kind of timid with me moving away. Everyone was kind of in fear of what would happen next because of the things that I was doing. And so when I moved away, people were asking me to come back. They were begging me to come back, my friends and stuff like that, because we were just locked in, and we was all for one and one for all. So when you lose one piece of that gold that you got, then the weight is just a little bit lighter. We want to keep it heavy when we're in the street. We want to stay dangerous. But everybody is not going to move the way you want to move. But I was one of those guys that moved the way that they needed me to move. So upon me leaving, they wanted me to come back. And I refused to go back because I didn't look at the fact that I would be helping my friends. I looked at the fact that I would be hurting my family by going back. However, once I became successful here in Memphis, after a 10, 15-year span of me being gone away from home, the people wanted me to return back to the streets because that's what we were used to. And our honor and our code was, if I ever make it, then I got my brothers. But in this time, I hadn't made it illegally. I had made it legally. There were job opportunities that I could have given guys to work with me, and I offered those job opportunities, but a lot of my friends didn't want those opportunities. They wanted to go back the negative route. So eventually I went back into the streets after moving to Memphis, after meeting all those good people in Memphis, after becoming a pillar to the community, and I went back to selling drugs. And then I started back selling drugs after I told God that I never would go back to selling drugs, and I ended up going back to selling drugs, and then I ended up in prison. So that part of the story is where it gets kind of serious, because people won't look at you the same once you destroy your character. Once you build up a great character with people and you have a good rapport and a good support system, you want to keep that support system. You don't want to revert back to what you used to do, because the betrayal is now not the people in the streets. The betrayal is you, or the successful person, because you're turning your back on your future and the people that's dependent on you. Your family. And if you own a nice business, then you got employees, and you got clients, you got customers, you got people that come because of you. But if they come and you're gone because of your actions and illegal activities, then they'll still support you, because people that love you, they just love you. But once you turn your back on your future like that, you can end up in a bad situation. Coming from such a good, successful situation, you can put yourself back in a bad one just by going backslide into what you used to do and letting your past haunt you. So,
hey man, I'm just glad to have met, a brother that got a chance to fix what was broken in his life, and now you have the understanding and have came to the realization that, you got to stay on this side of the track, you know what I'm saying, if you don't want to go back.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we know that the chain gang is building them bunks 3 high now, and they're going to make room for you.
They building new facilities every day.
And the thing is, it's modern day slavery, man. And my suggestion to a lot of these young brothers out here, man, I would rather you work for $20 an hour rather than 20 cents an hour.
Most definitely.
Because on the inside, man, that's the reason why now it's so hard for our young black king to get employment, because a lot of the jobs, they're being taken over by unicorns and tricorns on the inside of the prison industry. So, man, I'm just glad to see you. I'm glad to see that you're successful. I'm glad to see that you got it this time. And, man, that you're continuing to move forward as a successful black entrepreneur. And I just want to, man, just commend you on a job well done. I want to give you your flowers, man, and pray that, man, peace and blessings, man, continue to be upon you, man. I thank you, man, for allowing me to come in and interview you, man. And man, I thank you for your time, because we know time is the most precious asset that we have. It's the one thing that no matter how much money you get, you can't buy no more time.
Nah,
so for you to sit here on your off day on a Monday
that's right.
and let me come in here and tie
Yes,
up an hour of your time,
Yep.
hey man, that's astronomical, man. That speaks volume.
Yep.
And like I said, man, I just want to wish you the best, and man, continue, man, to push the needle forward and keep on inspiring, man, these young black kings in our community,
Will do.
man.
Will
you know
do.
what I'm saying? But
Will do.
in closing, do you have anything else that you want to close with?
I'm gonna close with this. Change. Change is the most important thing. You cannot grow if you don't change. It's all a part of it. It's inevitable. You know, people will tell you don't change. People will tell you I heard you not the same. But in order for you to grow, you have to change from the person that you were once before. You know, not everybody come from where we come from. So, you know, change is still inevitable, because you can be a rich person with bad habits. You know, you can be a poor person with good habits, but still, in order to make this thing thrive for us all, to make it work, we all have to change to move forward. So, you know, change is the most important thing. I think this is what it's all about. The system will be the system. The system won't change much. The system is there to trap us. It won't change much. We have to mentally change ourselves in order to evade that system, in order to move forward from that system. Even if we go through the system and come out, we have to change ourselves. They say it's rehabilitation, but I'm all about redemption. It's not about rehabilitation to me, because the system won't try to rehabilitate you. They say that parole and the doors of parole is a revolving door. They expect everybody to leave prison and re-enter prison because it's a business. And that's what they expect it to be. They expect it to continue to be that way. And in the third grade, these people start taking up surveys about who they expect to go to prison, and they do most of it in our communities. And that's something that we should be aware of. You know, growing up, I was aware of a lot of things because I read. Even though I was in the streets, I still read. I still wanted education. I still needed to learn. I thought that there was something serious that I needed to do in order for me to know about these laws that are out here. Because a lot of times it's just the ignorance of the law. You know, ignorance is bliss. Bliss means it works to somebody else's satisfaction, or it works for somebody else's benefit for you to be ignorant. And a lot of us are ignorant to certain facts when it comes to the law. So we have to, you know, change. It's all about that. And education is another thing that's very important. So we have to continue to educate ourselves and let that be priority. Let it be a top priority instead of just the things that we want. You know, those material things, they're going to always be there. But, you know, education and changing, it really only comes once in a lifetime if you're trying. You know, if you're not trying, then opportunities pass you all the time. But if you're trying, once you get your opportunity, you get it, you stick to it, and you elevate from there. Yeah, so.
Man, you heard the butt naked truth, man. From my main man, Mr. Anthony Williams, man. You know what I'm saying? From Next Up Barbershop.
Yeah.
Hey, it don't get no realer than that. It don't get no simpler than that. Man, it's plain. It's facts.
That's it.
It is what it is, man. This has been another edition of Pivoting from Surviving to Thriving, and we out. Peace.